The last thing I remember before everything changed was the sound of the fluorescent light above Register 3 flickering. It did that every night at exactly 11:47 p.m. Like the building itself knew something I didn't. Like it was trying to warn me. I was 17 years old. I was closing down a gas station truck stop on Route 9 by myself, the same way I did every Tuesday and Thursday night after football practice. My manager, a quiet man named Dale, had hired me 3 months earlier. He was calm, professional, always showed up unannounced right as I was counting the till in the dark with the backup lights on. At first, I thought that was just how he was. Dedicated, old school, the kind of guy who didn't trust anyone with the register. I was wrong about what kind of guy Dale was. I was wrong about almost everything. For the first 2 months, I didn't think much of it. Dale would appear from the shadows near the back corridor, always after 11 p.m., always when I was alone. Never when my co-worker Marcus was scheduled, never on weekends when we had 2 people closing. Only me, only the dark, only that flickering light above Register 3 that hummed like a living thing. One night in October 14th, a Tuesday, I remember because it was 2 days before my mum's birthday. I finally asked him about it. "Mr. Dale," I said, still counting the 50s, "you ever go home?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the kind that sits on a face like it was placed there carefully, one feature at a time. "I like to make sure my people are safe," he said. I didn't sleep well that night. I couldn't tell you why. Something about that word, people. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. In 1994, 6 years before he hired me, Dale had stabbed a woman to death behind a truck stop 40 miles south of ours. A cold case, unsolved for decades, filed away in a box in a county evidence room while Dale moved north, opened a new station, and started hiring teenagers to work the closing shift alone. The DNA that would eventually match him to that crime scene wasn't tested until 2019, 25 years later. I found out from a news alert on my phone while I was eating dinner with my kids. The night I should have listened to my body happened in November. I was closing up Register 2. The parking lot was empty except for one 18-wheeler parked at the far pump, engine off, dark. Dale had shown up at his usual time, and for the first 20 minutes everything was normal. Then he asked me something he'd never asked before. "You lock your car when you come in?" I said, "Yeah, always." He nodded slowly, looked out toward the lot. "Good habit," he said. "Lot of people move through these roads at night. People you don't want knowing you're alone." I laughed, actually laughed, because I thought he was looking out for me. 20 minutes later, I walked out to my car. The back left door was open. I know for a fact I hadn't opened it. I'd driven alone. I had no reason to touch the back doors. I stood there in the cold November air staring at that open door and felt something drop in my chest. Something ancient, primal. I got in, locked all 4 doors, drove home doing 90 the entire way, and called in sick for my next 2 shifts. I quit that job 2 weeks later. Told my mom I'd found something that paid better. I never told anyone the real reason. Fast forward 22 years. I'm 39. I have 3 kids. I coach my son's Little League team. I haven't thought about that gas station in a long time, or at least I've gotten good at not thinking about it. Then my phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer. "Is this my name?" A woman's voice, official sounding. "Speaking. This is Detective Laura Haynes with the State Bureau of Investigation. I'm calling regarding a former employer of yours, a man named Dale. I sat down on my kitchen floor. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I felt the tile under me. He's been charged with the 1994 murder of a woman named Patricia Owens. We're contacting former employees as part of our investigation. We'd like to know if you ever witnessed any behavior during your time working for him that seemed... I didn't let her finish. The back door of my car, I said. November. I need to tell you about the back door of my car. There was a pause on her end. Then she said very quietly, "We know about the back door." I still don't know exactly what that means. She wouldn't tell me more. The case is ongoing. What I do know is this. For 2 months in the fall of my junior year of high school, I counted money in the dark while a killer stood 6 feet behind me and called me his people. And every Tuesday and Thursday night, when I drove home alone on Route 9, I drove past the exact same stretch of highway where Patricia Owens was found. I was 17 years old. I didn't know what kind of man Dale was, but somewhere deep in the part of us that still remembers how to survive, I think part of me knew. That's the part that made me lock my car. That's the part that made me quit. Listen to that part. Whatever it costs you, listen to it. Stay safe out there. And if something feels wrong, it probably is. Story 2 begins. The first sign was rice. I know how that sounds, but let me explain, because this is the detail that still wakes me up at 3 a.m. sometimes. The detail that, looking back, should have told me everything. It was the summer of 1981. I was 9 years old, living in a house in South Carolina with my parents. Old house. The kind with high ceilings, thick walls, and big air ducts that ran through the whole building like veins. It started with a sound. Not a loud sound, not a crash, not a scream. Just a soft, rhythmic shifting above my bedroom ceiling at night. The kind of sound you hear once and tell yourself is the house settling. The kind of sound you hear twice and start inventing explanations for. Squirrels, pipes, old wood. The kind of sound you hear every night for 2 weeks before your brain finally stops letting you lie to yourself. I told my mother. She didn't believe me. I told my father. He went into the attic with a flashlight and came back down in 4 minutes. "Nothing up there," he said. "Go to sleep." So I went to sleep. And on the 3rd night after that, I woke up at 2:19 a.m. to the sound of footsteps directly above my head. Not settling, not pipes. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Like someone trying very hard not to be heard, and failing, just barely, in the silence of a sleeping house. I got up. I don't know why. Every part of my 9-year-old brain was telling me to pull the covers over my head and wait for morning. But something else, some older, quieter instinct, put my feet on the floor and walked me down the hallway toward the kitchen. The refrigerator light was on. Not the kitchen light, the refrigerator light. The door was open about 6 inches, and standing in front of it, his back to me, one hand wrapped around the neck of our milk carton, was a man I had never seen before in my life. He was thin, extremely thin, wearing clothes that looked like they'd been washed in a river and dried on a fence. He was eating something from a container with his fingers, quiet and methodical, the way an animal eats when it thinks no one is watching. He hadn't heard me. I stood in that hallway for what felt like a full minute, not breathing. Then I walked backwards, very slowly, to my parents' room. I woke my father. I told him what I saw. By the time we got back to the kitchen, the refrigerator door was closed. The man was gone. My parents looked at each other the way adults look at each other when they've decided a child had a nightmare. My father checked the back door, locked. Checked the windows, all latched. You were dreaming, he said. I knew what I saw. The last week of August, our house started to smell. Not right away. First, it was subtle, something slightly off underneath the regular smell of the house. Then it got worse. Then it got much worse. My mother called an AC repairman. He came out on a Tuesday, went into the attic, and came back down the stairs looking like a different person than the one who went up. He said something had crawled into our duct system and died. They sent a second man up with a mask. He was up there for 40 minutes. What he found was not an animal. It was a foam pad, positioned directly beside the vent that ran into my bedroom ceiling. The vent you could see through, if you were on the other side of it, directly into my room. Next to the foam pad, folded very carefully, were several sheets of paper. The police came. I heard my father talking to them in the hallway, in a low, controlled voice for a long time. When I asked him later what was on those papers, he said, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." He lied to me about that for 17 years. When he finally told me the truth, I was 26 with a kid of my own. The papers were drawings of my room, of my bed, of me sleeping. The man in our walls had been there since May, at least May. That's 3 months of lying in the dark above my bedroom ceiling, watching me through a vent, eating our food at 2 a.m. and disappearing back into the walls before sunrise. They never found him. To this day, no one knows who he was. I'm telling you this because of what my father said to me the night they found the foam pad. He sat down on the edge of my bed and he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You saw him, didn't you? In the kitchen?" "Yes," I said. He nodded. He didn't apologize. Men of his generation didn't do that. But he reached over and he turned on the lamp on my nightstand, the small one, the one that stayed on from that night forward, every night, for the rest of the time we lived in that house. Some things don't have explanations. Some things don't have endings. Some things just stop. And you're left trying to figure out what it meant, that someone chose your house, chose your walls, chose the vent that faced your bed, out of every vent in the whole house. Chose to watch a 9-year-old sleep, night after night, for 3 months. I still don't eat leftover sweet and sour pork. I don't know if I ever will again. Stay safe out there. And if your child tells you they heard something, please listen. Story 3 begins. I want you to pay attention to something for me. Think about the last time you came home at night. You pulled up to your house, got out of the car, and walked to your door. How long did you stand outside? 15 seconds? 20? Did you look around? Did you check the shadows between the cars? Probably not. Most of us don't. I didn't either. Not until the night I smelled cigarette smoke at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday in January, outside a house where nobody smoked. I rented a small house in Northern California, rural area, no streetlights, the kind of quiet that feels peaceful until it doesn't. I'd lived there 2 years without incident. I got out of my car and caught it immediately. A thin thread of smoke smell hanging in the cold air near my front porch. Odd. I'd never smelled that before. I didn't see anyone. I went inside, locked the door, and told myself it was a neighbor passing on the road. That was my first mistake. I noticed other things wrong over the next 30 minutes, each one small enough to dismiss on its own. My back door, which I always left unlocked during the day, was already locked when I went to check it. My kitchen chair was at a slightly different angle than I remembered. The rug near the hallway was wrinkled at one edge. None of it was enough. None of it, alone, was enough to make me pick up the phone. Then I heard the breathing. I was standing in my bedroom getting changed when I heard it. Slow, controlled, rhythmic breathing coming from the other side of my closet door. The kind of breathing that only sounds that controlled when someone is working very hard to be quiet. I didn't scream. I don't know how. Something in my brain went completely cold and clear, the way brains sometimes do in the moments before something terrible happens. I looked at my ceiling, at the small square panel in the corner of my closet, the attic access hatch. I made a decision in about half a second. I moved toward the closet. I had the hatch open and my hands gripping the frame above me when the closet door flew open behind me. I pulled myself up. My feet cleared the opening just as I heard boots hit the floor of my bedroom. I pressed myself flat against the attic floor, not breathing, listening to the sounds below me. He searched the bedroom first. I heard him check under the bed, throw open the bathroom door, pull back the shower curtain. Then the footsteps went down the hallway. Then they came back. Then they stopped directly beneath me. The closet door opened again. I watched the hatch from 18 inches away, my whole body locked, hands braced on both sides of the frame in case he tried to climb up. He stood there for what I can only describe as the longest 30 seconds of my life. Then he turned off the bedroom light and stood in the dark. He stayed in that dark room for 4 more minutes. I know because I was counting. I counted every second. I counted because it was the only thing keeping me from making a sound. Then the footsteps moved, down the hallway, into the kitchen, and I heard the unmistakable sound of my refrigerator opening. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't rushing. He was comfortable. He was in my house the way you are in a house you know. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. Not the searching, not the hunting, the comfort. I don't know how long I was in that attic before I heard the sirens. I had managed to get my phone out of my pocket, called 911, whispered my address so quietly I wasn't sure the dispatcher could hear me. But she did. She kept me on the line. She told me to stay exactly where I was. When the police cars pulled up, I heard the footsteps below me go suddenly fast, frantic, toward the back of the house. They caught him in the backyard. When the officer helped me down from the attic and I finally sat on my front steps with a blanket around my shoulders, she told me what they'd found. He had no ID, no connection to the neighborhood, no explanation for why my house. When they searched him, they found in his jacket pocket a handwritten list of addresses on my street. Mine was circled. I moved out the following week. I left almost everything behind. Furniture, clothes, kitchen stuff. I just left. I've thought about that list a lot over the years, about what it means that someone wrote down your address, circled it, came through the dark on a January evening and stood in your bedroom and listened for you in the quiet of your own home. I don't have a clean ending for you. No justice, no full explanation. He was charged with breaking and entering and released 16 months later. I learned one thing from that night that I'll carry the rest of my life. Your instincts are not paranoia. That cigarette smoke, that locked back door, that wrinkled rug. My body was already reading the scene before my brain would accept what it was seeing. When something feels wrong, it's wrong. Trust it. Every time. Lock your doors tonight and trust the part of you that knows.